Well, we'll begin with 10-minute delay, but I would like to introduce our next presentation, Joyful Praise. And presenter is Father Arshen Ayvazian, who one of our senior priests of the Armenian Church, and he served in the parishes both in Eastern and Western diocese, as well as the Dean of the St. Nerses Armenian Seminary. Again, I invite you to go to our website and read more about both their Arshen and their Voskan. One of the things about their Arshen that literally 2 or 3 weeks ago, he published the lectionary of the Armenian Apostolic Church that has the English, the readings for Sunday and feast days in English, as well as patristic homilies and prayers that we use in the Armenian Church. Both in, modern Armenian and English. And that book is available, and I think that book should be in every Armenian church now. And if you want to have your copy, it's available. About the Voskan, I have to say this. We, the clergy, as well as every
Macrina, I can't talk. I'm in the middle of a conference now.
Our mission is to bring people to God, and some of us do that by preaching, some of us do that teaching, and Dave Voskan does that by simply singing. He opens his mouth and people see God through their ears. They see God, they come close to God. I know that because I follow him on his YouTube channel, and I know that he has many followers, both Armenians and non-Armenians. So later in presentation, we will hear Տեր Voskan's wonderful voice. Տեր Arshen, օրհնեցեք եւ խնդրեմ. We cannot hear you, Տեր Հայր.
How about now?
Very good.
Okay. My apologies. I was having a new door installed. It got delayed a little bit. I had to stay with them so they would make it right. But for any one of you, or for all of you, if you're in the area, I have a new door and it is open for you anytime you knock on it. I chose the title of this presentation, Joyful Praise, from one of the odes, the dars, or merites that we sing. Koves per granas. They have some wonderful poetic expressions in those. I wish we could revive their usage, not just here in America, but anywhere. However, church music, liturgical music, is part of the Christian tradition that actually has its beginnings in the Jewish worship, in the synagogue worship. The first songs that were sung in the in worship are the Psalms that are extensively used in our liturgies. As a matter of fact, the entire Psalm book in its entirety divided into 8 sections for the 8 tones of the church's both liturgical as well as music arrangements, and I'll explain how their usage is, application is. However, every day, whatever the tone of the day is, every day has its tone that would guide and direct the user, has a section of the Psalms read in the church. So in every 8 days, the entire Psalm book is supposed to have been read in the church's cycle. And from there, in Psalm 96, 1 to 3, a wonderful, wonderful psalm which really uh, serves as the foundation of the church's musical expression of prayer. Oh, sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, bless his name. Proclaim the good news of his salvation from day to day. Declare his glory among the nations, his wonders among all peoples. That's really the essence of liturgical music. Um, I'd like to read that in Armenian too, because it sounds uh, so poetic, as in English, so in Armenian. Օրհնեցեք ձեր հորհնություն նոր, օրհնեցեք ձեր ամենայն երգիր, օրհնեցեք ձեր եւ օրհնեցեք զանուն նորա, ավետարանեցեք օրստորես փրկություն նորա, բադմեցեք ի հետանոսս պարս նորա, ամենայն ժողովուրդ զսկանչելիս նորա. Wonderful way. The Psalms that I am reading, Psalm 96, verses 1 to 3. Now, there is one thing at the beginning we have to, I have to clarify. A misnomer is applied quite frequently when we talk about church music. Everybody assumes that whatever is sung in the church is hymn. That is not exactly correct. Hymn is only one category of hymn is only one category of music. And in our case, there are a few different categories. There is hymn, that's sharagan. There is song, yerk. There is mereti, that is translated as melody. And there is dar, that is translated as ode. And there is gans, that is difficult to translate, that would do justice to usage of the term. However, a few times it's been translated as treasure or jewel. I prefer to use gem. You know, these are gems of the church's songs. A gem of a song, a gem of a poetry, if you will. So, having considered all of those things, I'd like to set up the groundwork for the das, meretis, and kansas that we're going to experience. That's going to be our focus. However, the church's usage of 8 tones is very significant, because it is, without it, we would be completely lost. We don't know what to do, what to sing, and what to select. So the 8 tones serve 2 purposes. Number one, it's musical. That is, each tone, 8 tones, each tone is a musical key. Okay, let's say C flat, B minor. It's a key. So it indicates the musical, musical tone of the song, but it has also a non-musical application, and that is the way certain selections have to be made of what psalms to read or what songs to read, because the songs also are divided. If the tone of the day is this, sing this one. If the tone of the day is the other one, then you sing this one. So selection of the item is very important. Now, um, I said we have 8 tones musically, and each tone has its musical key, and each tone has also an auxiliary key, tartsvatsk. Tartsvatsk. So you have 8 plus 8, 16 keys on which we sing. Now, uh, the 8-tone system renews itself every pumparegentan, regardless of what the day before the tone was. Every pumparegentan, it begins anew with tagen. Okay? So when you reach pumparegentan, the tone of the day is tagen. And that leads into Easter, Aipsa. Every Easter, the tone of the day is Aipsa. And it continues that way, the 8-day cycle. And the 8-day cycle has a theological content. We know that God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the 7th day. But in Christian theology, with Christ's ministry on earth and his resurrection, a new day started. And that new day is the 8th day. This is a simple way of putting it, but it's a way that expresses the essence of why 8 days and not 7 days. So the 8th day of creation, it's like the perfection of all creation. So the 8-tone system, which has been used musically also. And we're not the only church that has that. The Byzantine church has a similar system. And our system also, at some point, not always, but in the Middle Ages, the Byzantine music or Byzantine example has influenced ours. And particularly in the early 19th century, the revival of the Byzantine music, liturgical music, had an influence on ours as well. Um, they had a system of, for example, 64 tones that was eventually reduced to 20. So, and our Hampartsum Limongian also, following that revival, wanted to start a revival of church music in the Armenian church, and um, brought uh, into being the modern day Armenian church music, with the creation of the Armenian musical system, which until today is recognized and even used in some circles. Um, Now, in our case, each sharagan in the same key can be sung in 3 different tempos. It can be sung in what is in Armenian called hortor, allegro, chapavor, moderato, and zanr, largo. Now, you are all familiar, I am going to give you an example, or familiar with hrashapar, right? When a bishop comes to the church uh, on the feast of St. Gregory, this is the hymn. Hrashapar astevaz Yevmish parechna. That is the moderate, the middle of the road tempo. You can sing that same song in the same key in a more uh, allegro tempo. For example, Rasha parastavad yev mishparech namo vor haraj kidut yampus per. You see the tempo? And you can also sing it in adagio. Rasha par astevas. And this is the case in almost any sharagan. You could sing it in three tempos, depending on the time that you have, on the mood you are, or the instructions of the book, and so on. Now, in addition to these, there is another tempo that is called steri. That is very slow, uh, you know, largo or you know, adagio, even slower. And and this one, for example, is a perfect example of an steri sharagan. It is the mangun, the pueri sharagan of matins for the feast days of apostles. No. You see how very slow it goes. And each one has its own beauty in and of itself. Now, uh, yesterday, you went through some of the other details, so I'm going to skip that and go directly to the creation of Hampersum Limonjan, who created this new system that we have. As I said, it's 8 keys plus 8 keys, each one double. And they are also recognized, they were adopted also by Turkish musicians from the Armenians. Armenians express themselves in those church keys in the Turkish language, and the modern day so-called Turkish classical music, of whom many composers are recognized Armenian musicians, sing it in those church keys. For example, Aipsa, which is, you know, and anyone who knows Armenian music, church music, you say Aipsa, we know exactly what it is. Aipsa Tartsavask, auxiliary, we know what it is. Aipsa in Turkish is Rast. Aipken is Segya. Pensa is Hüseyini. Pengen is Acem. And so on and so forth. Hijaz, Sabah, Isfahan, and Uşak. I lived in Istanbul for a while, and until today, this situation exists when they're singing a song. The Tabrabed says, Hagot Sabah der Vogormiyama ıskısır. Doesn't say Tagen der Vogormiya ıskısır, Sabah der Vogormiyama ıskısır. And the guy knows exactly what key it is and what Dervormia is talking about. So therefore, our sharagans musically are so rich, so rich. Unfortunately, nowadays, in our American reality, and I suspect also in many other parts of the world, be it Europe um, or Middle East, they are being uh, forgotten because they're falling out of use. Now, in the United States, our church services are only from Sunday to Sunday, rarely during the week, and rarely on a saint's day, except once or twice a year, Vartanans, Revontians, and so on. But it is important to remember that um, our daily services um, need to be adjusted to fit our present lifestyles, but there has to also be an adjustment that will accommodate our modern living circumstances. You know, nobody here is going to go every day, drive a half hour, 45 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes for matins, and then uh, get to the office or to work at somehow, and then come back at 4 o'clock for Vespers, another half hour, 45 minutes, and then go home. It just doesn't fit our lifestyle. But with that, we are also losing a lot of our musical as well as liturgical heritage. Now, Sharagan, Sharagan, getting back to that most important word. Sharagan is translated as hymn, and Ormanian is actually making a word play that Shar Agants Badvaganats, namely a string of fine gems. Shar Agants Badvaganats, a string of fine, precious gems. That's not the origin of the word, but he's making a word play which really indicates the importance of Sharagans in our church. Let me say this, nowhere, one source that is the hymnal of the church, can you find so much of the church's theology as they are in our Sharagans. Everywhere in the Sharagans, so beautifully, so richly, our church's theology is expressed. Now, there are two, two editions of the hymnal, Sharagnots, Sharagnots. We have the large edition, can you see? Sankar Sharagan. It's a voluminous book, but it contains all the Sharagans for the year, rarely making any reference to go to page this and that, rarely. Usually, if a Sharagan is used 3 times a year, it is exactly there 3 times as you need it. That's why it is so voluminous. But there is also a handy one,
Ayo.
Serat Sharagan,
Ayo.
in which you have all the Sharagans, and at the end, you have a list of all the Sharagans, what feast day, what Sharagan, and if there is any repeats, it takes you to the same page. It marks the page like this here. Okay, so that's the Sharagans, Sharagans. And of course, the variety now, the categories of Sharagans. We have many categories of Sharagans. In the Kishera Jamerkutun, nocturnes, is Orshnutyun Sharagan. Orshnutyun Sharagan, translated as the canticle hymn of the day, and it actually takes its name from its beginning, Orshnes Tsukas Derzi Paroke Paravorial. So Orshnutyun Sharagan, Orshnesek. Like if I'm going to start singing a Kimgen Sharagan, I start with the psalm, Orshnes Tsukas Der, that's Kimgen. Or if it is Pensa, I would go, Orshnes Tsukas Der. And you have 8 tones like that, and you have 8 tartsvask, auxiliaries of the same keys. So Orshnutyun Sharagan in nocturnes, there are 5 different ones for matins, Aravodian Jamerkutun, Hartz Sharagan. Diran Sırpazan has translated those with their Latin names as the source, Patrum hymn as Hartz from the fathers, because each hymn, each verse ends with Astavaz Hartsen Merots, God of our fathers. And Mezatsuste, the Magnifica hymn, Vohormia Miserere, because it starts Vohormia, Psalm 51 in the Western edition, Psalm 50 in Orthodox edition. And Dilan Sırpasan has translated this Der Hergnitz Sharagan as Laudate, that is, Orshnetzek is Der Hergnitz, praise the Lord from the heavens. And Mangung Sharagan, Pueri song, because it starts with that same psalm, Orshnetzek Mangung Kızder, Yev Orshnetzek Zanun Diyar, praise the Lord, O children of the Lord. And the last one category, Hamparsi, again taking its name from the psalm that it precedes, I will raise my eyes to the mountains, Hamparsi Zach Similerins, at Vespers. So it's a wonderful, wonderful setup, and it actually is a cycle that is so rich as it goes. Now, altogether, there are recognizable 996 individual hymns. 996, almost 1,000 hymns. And that is not all. This is only the ones that we have right now. A historian actually gives an example or makes a reference to the fact that at one time in the Middle Ages, there were so many hymns that one person in the church recognized and the other person did not. One person started singing it, knowing where to look for the words. The other one didn't know. So there was a lot of confusion at that time. And then it was edited. Some were left out and some were kept in. And along that way, some recognizable in present-day charagans. Some were changed to the detriment. For example, we have some hymns that you can tell it is acrostic of the Armenian alphabet. It reaches 5 letters and it stops. So where did the rest go? It's somewhere in the manuscripts. It's not to be found. In some instances, we have the first letter of each verse giving us the name of the author. And the master of this is Saint Nerses the Graceful, Sut Nerses Shnorali. Noras Derzial, which is a familiar song, yerk, of Saint Nerses, sung on Sundays. Actually, the first letter of each verse of that song translates Nerses as his signature. And you are familiar with Ay Sorancar, which we sing not only on Holy Thursday, Holy Friday, but also a few times during the year, is Nerses Shnoralis that goes all the way to from, I think, Holy Friday, and then it goes into Holy Friday afternoon, Norokor Diezeratz, and first it goes I Penkim Tayechza, and then Nerse Si Yerk. Very rich, expressive content there. Now, charagans consist of what in Armenian is called badger. Badger. Badger translated is an image, an icon, if you will, but it is a three-verse, usually. Sometimes it is more than 3, 4, 5, or in the case of a complete alphabetical acrostic, it goes all the way to 36 verses. But generally, Meg Badger Sharagan, one icon of Sharagan, 3 verses is usually understood to be the case. In our instructions from the Donatsuits, the book that tells us what to do every day, feast day, and whatever the liturgical content of the day is, or the Oratsuits, which is derived from the Donatsuits. This is the Oratsuits, and the Donatsuits comes in a couple of different editions. However, it says, for example, Orhnutun Sharagan, it gives you the initial couple of words, and this Yur Sarokan, the entire set. Yur Sarokan, this Sharagan with its entire set. So it's understandable what that means. You open the Sharagan and you can see the entire set right there. You don't have to guess what it's going to be. Now, outside of the 8 tones and outside of the Sharagans, we have the songs, as I have said, and we have another category now. It's called a book put together, Dagaran, Dag translated as odes. So a book of odes. And right now there exists 2 editions. There is this early edition of Jerusalem, 1907. Can you see? The same thing was reprinted in 1949. I think even the 1949 now is out of print. And at my recent trip to Jerusalem, I saw a new edition, a little thicker. The paper is a little thicker, but it's been reprinted. Um, Archbishop Norar Bogharian, a wonderful teacher and a wonderful scholar of our church traditions and heritage, makes a point of mentioning that these two editions, the 1907 and 1949, have so many errors, omissions, and imperfections. For example, there are a few that start with the initials of the author, Vartan, you can tell. So it has V, A, R, T, A, and the last one that starts with N is not there. So the author's name is Varta and not Vartan. Why did they leave that line out? I don't know, but that's the imperfection and omission that Nuray Sirpazan has made a reference to in his books, in his articles. But in any event, these are some excellent content of Dar, and Kants, and Meretis. There is one distinction, however. Any one of those Dar, Kants, and Meretis are out of the musical 8 tones, 8 plus 8 tones. They're independent musical creations. And some of them are, at least to my ears, uh, wonderful musical creations, uh, pleasant to hear, pleasant to sing. And we're going to hear a few of them in a minute or so. Now, um, in many of these DAOs, we have quite a few. The music is lost. Even now, you take this Dagaran that I showed you, there are some that nobody knows what the music is. They exist in the Chaz form. Some of them probably still exist in Armenian notation, and they're accessible. That's easy to read, but out of use completely. And some of them are completely out of use and lost. They're not even available in Armenian notation of Limonjian creation. They are available only in the Chaz form. You heard about Chaz last night, but Chaz, the meaning of Chaz is completely lost, completely lost. Um, it is said that Gomidas Vartabed worked on it, and he had reached close to um, opening the secret of the Chaz notation, which would have been wonderful. But of course, the genocide came and took Gomidas Vartabed, and we have lost everything that he did. In our own days, there is a musicologist, he passed away, but a wonderful musicologist who has a book, Հայկական խազային նոթակրությունը, Robert Atayan. He tried to pursue the opening, of course, but provides expert and historical as well as a reliable information about the Chaz, but not necessarily unraveling its meaning and usage. But they are independent musically. As far as their word content is concerned, many of them are, if not rhymed, yet they have a poetic, expressive set of words and lines. And sometimes the words rhymes, sometimes the syllable count is similar, like 5-5, 5-4-2, and so on. It's very calculated well, but it has some wonderful, wonderful content. Now, at this point, I'm going to ask Derhard to sing for us one of the resurrection merites, Ov Bar Dizban. It's a familiar tune, you may know it, but it is a wonderful, wonderful example of merites.
Terhal, before you start, on our website, if you go to armenianchurchmusic.org, under tutorials, there is a tab, a page that says Sacred Music Festival 2021, Spring 2021 materials. If you go on that page, there are translations of all those sharagans that meredis that you will hear, as well as musical scores. And I just posted that link in the chat. So if you want to follow or go back later and look at the translations and use that music, it's on our website. Thank you.
My greetings to all of you in this wonderful occasion, and from Holy Virgin Mary and True Agat Armenian Church. You can see now I'm in the sanctuary of the church, and I'm so glad to perform this, one of the game of the Armenian Church, and which calls Ov Bardisban, or Gardener, harmonized by Bishop Zareh Aznavourian. So hopefully the performance will be good and we will not have any interruption for listening. And please be muted when I will present this melody. Thank you. Father Arshen, you can keep continuing.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Melodies, when are they sung? They're usually at the beginning, in our present usage, at the beginning of the divine liturgy, when the priest goes up to the altar and the curtain is drawn and he prepares the elements. That's when it is sung. And there are different ones for different feast days. But for the purpose of creating awareness and hopefully with that awareness for correcting some mistakes, unfortunate mistakes, let me bring this to your attention. Sometimes we sing one line or two lines of a much longer. My suggestion would be, instead of singing the same, sing a different line, a set of different lines. For example, I sordone sub zanantian, you know that one, right? I sordone. Well, we only know maybe 2, 4, 6 lines at the most. That is like 26, 28 lines. And the content is wonderful. It tells the story. The one that Derhard just sang. It is really a dialogue between Mary of Magdalene when she came to the grave, to the tomb, and had an encounter with Jesus, and there was a conversation. It tells about that conversation in such a wonderful way, and you know, we should look at that possibility, or one that you know very well, for example, Donemk, right? Everybody recognizes it as Donemk. Donemk, wonderful song, except that is it's a one-line melody, but the first part of the music is like an introductory part, and it bursts, Donemk. So we have eliminated to the point of completely forgetting, entirely wiping out of our memory the introductory words and just going directly to the musical burst of "Let us celebrate," Donemk. The words of the entire song is Aisor and Zoras Yergnainots Donemk Esko Harutyunot. Today, with the heavenly hosts, let us celebrate your resurrection, O Lord. Wonderful way of saying it. But what we have done is, instead of saying today with the heavenly hosts, we have eliminated that. We can just say, let us celebrate the resurrection of the Lord. So consider those kind of situations in many, many ways. But let me also give nowadays, many do not even know what we're singing. If they do, some issues will rise. In the one that there I just sang, Yeg Yevdes derin zor chotziat asken Israelin. Come and see the place where the nation of Israel wounded me. If you sing that and people understand, we're going to be called anti-Semites. We're going to be called, anti-Israelites and so on, which is not the intent. You know, anybody could be an Israelite. And right now I could say with my actions, with the way I live or fail to live my Christian faith, with the way I treat Jesus, he is offended, and then I become the offender, and thus I become the Israelite who wounded his side. So we have to be a little careful when we approach these things, and there are not too many, but there are a few places. and all kinds of other situations also may arise. However, continuing, the melodies in the earlier dharans are indicated where they would be sung. So they're in the beginning, and they're also um, in the Badarak towards the end. Um, the rubrics say, Yev tabirkin yerken is dagos chururtavoris isbat shaji avuren. Okay? Um, on page, let me see, 207 for the, I have it right here. Right, right after Christos Badarakial, Pashchi Imichimerum. Yevtabirkin Yerken Dagas Churutavoris Isbat Shajiavur, according to the proper of the day. So there are many, and whatever the Orasus indicates. Or another place that it is to be sung is after communion is distributed. Kohanam Kiskender, it is after that, where it says, Iskastanor Tabirkin Yagan Zdagus Horher Tavorus. Minchev Kahanain Gadares says Garkahotis. After the distribution of the communion, there are prayers that the priest reads, and while he is reading, to give him time to read, doves are sung, so he would have time to read those. And also at the end, this is still in our Badarak text, Jamahir text, at the end when mas is distributed. Mas is not used in the Middle East, where I grew up, in Jerusalem until today. Mas is distributed way at the end of the Badarak, while people are leaving the church. The priest places a piece in the person's hand. That's when they actually present the hand like this, and he puts it on top of the hand, and they take it directly into consumption. But now all that has been replaced. So all the doves that the book says, all the places that we should sing the doves, they are replaced by Dervogormia, which it was already said yesterday that it was introduced by Simeon, Catholicos Simeon of Yerevan, at the end of the 18th century. And as Ormanian also indicates, it has found so much popularity that right now everybody thinks that was there by, placed there by St. Gregory the Illuminator, which is not the case. It's the latest addition to the Badarak. In many ways, yes, it is popular. It is recognizable. It has some wonderful tunes. It moves people's heart, but some other aspects liturgically do not move people's hearts, do not stir the faith as much as Derba Ormia does. So it has become sacrosanct to touch it. However, those are also sung outside of the divine liturgy on various feast days and special liturgies. For example, blessing of water, Ov Zarmanali, Ov Zarmana, that's a dag. Or separately, what follows of Zarmanali, I that's another dag. So it is sung over there, or on the feast of the presentation of our Lord, Christos Parats Takavor, Christos, and so on. So it has wonderful usage. Some are sung Davs on Holy Thursday. You're familiar with Sidi. That's one line of a much larger Dav, but that line has stood out. And also on Holy Friday at the tomb of Jesus. But now we're going to sing another Mereti, Khangizari Namanes. It is a wonderful, wonderful Mereti with wonderful word content um, dedicated to the Holy Mother of God.
Okay, let's listen this melody and enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Derhal. Um, this is quite, uh, extensively used on St. Mary's feast days, of which we have a few during the year. I must also emphasize that the distinction between Dar, Mereti, and Kans is almost entirely lost. They are interchangeably used now, so we have to recognize that fact, or if we're going to revive it, we have to find a special, either revive it in its old traditional way, ancient way, or a new way of usage. However, there was a separate book at one time called Kansaran. Just like we have Dagaran, this is Dagaran, we had Kansaran. And the first one, the first Kansaran, apparently was put together by a person who has contributed a lot to our liturgical development in the 15th century, Krikor Khalatetsi. He has put, the first book of Kansaran. And Kansas started with St. Gregory of Datev, apparently. He is the one who started the tradition of Kans. They are poetic, sometimes rhymed, sometimes soundly, the sound of the words match, but they're done in poetic way. You could take it as one line or three lines, but there is, for example, you know, probably from the washing of the feet, Eis chorhut letzav. Eis chorhut letzav, ant kusha getzav, askadaretzav. You see how? Eis chorhut letzav, ant kushagetsav askadaretsav, and it goes like that in entirety, and it continues. Now, in our present day tradition, many people think this is a separate one. Actually, it's the continuation of that same kans, Ais chorut l'sav, sirdim sasani. Look at the rhyme again. Sirdim sasani, sarsab zisuni, basan hutayi. Okay. Now, count the rhyme. Sird or Ais chor hurt l'tzav. 5. Ant kusha getzav. Ast gada retzav. 555. And sometimes it is 545, 544. So it's very creative way of telling a story. And DAOs, I mean cans, they are used originally in their original usage was in the matins, Ayvazian Jamerkutyun, right after Parki Partsuns, of which we have now, but they're now recognized as karos, but their origin is as a kans. For example, Asfad's Metz, the note, the rubric says it was said or sung first by St. Gregory the Illuminator. I don't know about the authenticity of that, but today it is sung, or St. Gregory sang it for St. Ripsime and her companions. It is sung today for the feasts of apostles and prophets. And so on. And then there is Aratsnork, which is sung on the feast days of fathers of the church, Hayrabed and Vartabed, and Jeknutyun for the feast days of martyrs and ascetics. And then there is a new edition, Marsut, or one that has been combined. It doesn't fall in the same style. Marsut Parechosia, it's a petitional song. Most of them are petitional anyway, but Marsur on the feast days of Mary. Now, but there are also kansas, and I must point this out, there are kansas that were written for the purpose of using it at funerals to, and I use this word knowing exactly what it means, to induce tears. In Armenian, there is a word, yegeramayr, one who actually, a mother who laments, sort of leads the lamentation over a dead person. They used to sing these kansas, they were kansas, they used to sing it so that people will cry. When I was a young boy in Beirut, that practice remained. When somebody died, the burial had to be done within 24 hours, not modern day facilities for funeral homes and so on. And these professional tear inducers would go to the house. They would be given a sheet of paper with information about the person, and he or she would start now singing about the dead person's life and you know, bringing tears to people's eyes. Fortunately, at that time, Catholicos Horen Paroyan was the primate of Lebanon, And I remember this very well. It was 1952 or 1953. I was a young boy. He actually said, no more of this. Put an end to it, period. That was not allowed, and it stopped. Even though in some cases they tried to sneak one in at the cemetery or something, but eventually it died. But the practice apparently at some point in the 19th century even was so widespread that Nerses Ashtaragesi Catholicos, Nerses the fifth Ashtaragesi Catholicos, has a canon forbidding uh, singing sad songs for people to cry. Now, nowadays, I'll bring it home to today. In Los Angeles, and I saw this also in Fresno, they come with a duduk and start singing sad songs on the duduk, and people cry. It happened once over there at the funeral of a young boy. I mean, the family was sad enough, the mother was already crying enough, and suddenly after I finished, I hear duduk in the background. I wasn't told this going to happen. I heard duduk in the background, and as soon as this man started playing duduk, everybody started crying. uh, I really had to go and say, stop this right now. And I, I immediately became unpopular, but I stopped it. So just know that the councils at some point had a negative usage that the church does not sanction. And if you see anywhere that it is revived, then please let me know and I will interfere. Um, in the meantime, I'd like to conclude now with another wonderful meriti that is for the feasts of the cross, Chachni Nachnumen, and this one is really theologically so sound, so rich. It connects the Old Testament to the New Testament with the experience of the Chashni Nachnumen Yerevetzav. It appeared in the past, initially, it appeared, now it appears again with Jesus. Such rich theology, wonderful theology, and it's beautiful music. Derhayr.
Thank you so much for explanation. Let's hear what song we talked about it.